Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. It is a spin-off of the website and book review site of Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast is about book reviews, a writer's muse, a book's peruse, author interviews, and literary news. Welcome to the new year, where new things may happen with this. I hope you all enjoy, and thank you for listening.
Okay, so good evening, listeners. I'm Amy, and welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Today we are joined by an author. Please introduce yourself and let the audience know how they can connect with you.
Hi Amy, my name is Richie Billing. I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm an author from Liverpool in the UK. Best way to connect with me is probably through my website, which is richiebilling.com. I'm not very active on social media, but yeah, website's probably the best place to find me.
Great. So you just had a release. Can you tell our listeners about your latest book?
Yeah, so it's called Together We Rise, and it's a novella, and it tells the story of a revolution against a corrupt government, which I think a lot of people can relate to that kind of theme at the moment.
Oh, yes.
All over the world.
Yeah.
So it was a really fun thing to write because I've been incredibly frustrated by politics of the world for the last, good few years.
Yeah.
It's as a writer, it's easy to feel quite helpless and you don't really know what to do. And the only thing I can do is write about it. So I decided to try and critique and explore what was happening in the wider world, but put it in my fantasy world, because sometimes, I don't know if you can relate to this, Amy, but I find that people can relate to stories when they're told in a different way or from different perspectives. Have you ever found anything like that yourself?
Oh, definitely. And as a writer myself, some things I just write and I don't publish, but there's certain things I don't discuss with people. I keep to myself, like religion and politics. And that's just mainly because the last few years, if you had a different point of view from even a friend or a family member, years ago, you would have had a nice heated debate. These days, you're like, oh, you just lost whatever relationship you have with that person. Like, you no longer exist because you don't agree with them. And I think, years ago, it didn't happen that way. If you disagreed, it didn't matter what the topic was. You respected each other's opinion. Now we're not even doing that. So I completely agree. I mean, some things I just put on paper just to get them off my chest and out of my head, but not really necessarily share them with people. But in reading your story, I just, for one, the title just grabbed me because that is so true, and more of that kind. We need more togetherness as humans, humanity, and then being able to relate, because of what the world is like now, but in a story and in your point of view and how you tell it, it's like you get it. Even it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on or whatever, but if you read that, you just get it and say, yes, I can relate to that. Because you're not saying you got to do one thing or another and telling people what they're thinking is wrong. Your point of view coming out made for an amazing story and something that all people should read.
No, that's very kind of you to say, Amy. You made a lot of really good points, and I think the main thing I wanted to say in sort of response to that is this this story is not told from any one sort of political angle. It's just told as it is from someone who's lived through the sort of the machine of society, the capitalist machine. And one interesting thing that I sort of came about as a result of this story is someone who's actually like is a dedicated Trump voter, and he wrote to me and said how much he loved it, and I found that really amazing because, like what you said, these are issues that sort of transcend everything. Like everyone on every side can relate to them. And it's not about like politics and stuff. And I think that's why culture and books and music and art, any kind of artwork really, it can bring people together. And you're taking a step away from, like you say, this at times really nasty divisive rhetoric that's going on. You can't have these rational debates anymore. But if you do it around a cultural piece, people from all different angles can read that book and not feel judged. They can engage with the words and take what they want from them. And I think politics has become very, what they call it, identity politics, don't they? And it's very tribal. But you have to take a step away from it and try and explore these things with different cultural mediums where people feel a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then when, if someone is, whether they're reading a book or looking at a piece of art or listening to music, anything artistic, everybody may interpret those in a way that it relates to them. Sometimes we can relate to certain songs or music, lyrics. Sometimes just the rhythm is what connects us with music or something art. Everybody has their own impression and perception of what an art piece is, rather than it. You don't always understand what the artist was thinking, but you look at it and you see it in a whole different way. And I think that's kind of like what your story is, and bringing it to the forefront. And I think it's really, really important that more things like this are written and shared. And you could read, curl up on your sofa and you're reading your book, and you don't have to explain to anybody why you liked it or why you felt a certain way. I mean, you can, if you had a book club or some kind of discussion over it. And like you said, there's no right or wrong opinion when discussing something, your perception of something in a book or any type of art. Of course, writing in itself is art, and you're definitely one of the better artists I've read. But
Very good.
yeah, it was actually I asked you if I could read your book. I subscribed, I don't know how, I just subscribed to so many different newsletters, and I saw that you had this upcoming book, and because I'm always so busy, I don't always have the time to say, hey, can I read your book? But it just really drew me in, and I'm like, I have to read that. So that was me reaching out to you saying, hey, can I read your stuff?
That's what we want as writers, yes. I was curious really because it's a novella, so it's obviously not shorter, and I personally feel like, I mean, who doesn't want to read a short book? Because sometimes novels are a lot of work and less commitment for a novella. So I think, yeah, give a novella a go. But the structure of this book, it was split into 8 parts with 8 different characters. And I was curious as to how you found that, because some people have felt that they haven't been able to connect with a single character enough. But the reason why I've structured it like that is because one of my favorite TV shows is The Wire. I don't know if you've ever seen The Wire.
Yeah, I've seen it.
But the reason why I love it so much and I respect it so much is because it does such a fantastic job of like critiquing and exploring a single issue, which is the war on drugs, from lots of different perspectives. You've got obviously the streets, you've got the police, you've got the journalists, and then you get the children, and you see how it affects everybody. And that's what I want to do with Together We Rise, is have all these different perspectives. So we've got the healer to show the perspective of having to put people back together after the sort of system has chewed them up and spat them out. And then you've got the working perspective, of always bear the biggest brunt of these kind of things. And then the perspective of drug dealers, which I think is quite an interesting one, because they're the sort of economic sort of product of the system, and that is the sort of heartless nature that they have is a reflection of what the system is essentially.
Yeah.
And then one of my favourite perspectives is the police, because they're victims in this as much as anyone, and they're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I quite like that one. But so I was rambling there. But what was your favourite one out of them all?
I really, I found it really interesting, with the drug dealers. And I know it's weird to say, but it's that kind of perspective that, I think it's something very unique. Like, you wouldn't think about how, what your perception of, dealers and things like that are, and how it would be impacting to them. 'Cause yeah, sure, maybe they are, cold and heartless that you think, because they're just out for a profit, but you don't think about them as people and how, things just, it unravels, like, from the top all the way to the bottom and the end user, and how things work. So I found that was most, even though I can't relate to a drug dealer,
Yeah.
but it, that was something that, I was like, oh, well, I never really thought about that. So,
It's the experience, isn't it? Like, I think
yeah,
the character's called King, and the main one for me is because he's a product of the system, and he has to experience things as everyone else has done. So for him, he just doesn't want to be hungry. He doesn't want to experience a situation of not having enough money to buy food, and that's what drives him to sort of pursue wealth so much. I mean, and I've been in that situation in my life where I have literally had no money to eat like food that I want to eat, or just food in general.
right.
And you do kind of say to yourself in that situation, like, I will work hard and strive to not be here again. And I get that completely, and that's why I think it's a relatable aspect to him, because I'd say a lot of people have been in the same situation.
And a lot of people now are in that situation where they're, because of prices that, and I know I've been in a situation where I was wondering where my next meal was coming from, and living in motels, and, being homeless, but being able to just afford, because I had a job, to live in a motel and out on the street, with a child. But you can I think people who have food insecurity, as they call it now, but it's been something that's been since the dawn of time, really, people wanting to make sure they have enough food, farmers pray for their crops. If their crops are destroyed, they don't know, they can't sell or they can't eat. And, you know, you made, I think anyone who's ever had to decide between food and paying a bill or wondering how, would be able to feed their children, but went hungry as a parent so their children could eat. I think people understand that, maybe even understand, okay, I will do whatever it takes to make sure, I don't starve or my family don't starve, my children don't starve. We may take different paths and not always, and sometimes it's the right thing to do and sometimes it's not. And sometimes we have to make sacrifices, but I can understand his train of thought of, I don't ever want to go hungry. I want to always have enough money for food and whatever I want and whatever I need.
Yeah. And in as far as he's concerned, he's justified in his actions because it's a game. It's a game of survival, essentially. And it's amazing. Like, I'm really sorry to hear that you went through all those things, and I'm glad that you've managed to get through them. And it's just, like you say, there's so many people who are faced with these situations on a daily basis, and it is tough. And sometimes I don't think writing really speaks to these people. It doesn't reflect their stories, especially the publishing industry.
Yeah.
Definitely doesn't like these kind of stories. And yeah, it's a sort of, when you see these kind of things in stories, hopefully it sort of empowers people to think, oh yeah, well, if that character's done it, then I can do it as well, even if it is fiction.
Exactly. And a lot of times, real life is worse than fiction.
Yeah.
You know, and the things but I like that we can, as writers, we can put our words down and use them in a way that, other people, if they read them, they can relate to them, or they could say, that would never happen to me. And a lot of people don't think that something, just because they have, a good savings or, they're well off, middle class and, upper class and all that. But some just don't think that it could just take, you could snap your finger and all of it could be gone.
Yeah. And it's amazing, isn't it? Because I always think, how do you reach those people? And the answer sort of that I've come to is that it is through cultural things like books and art and films and TV shows, and changing the cultural mindset, and even music, just like even talking about these issues or reflecting these different perspectives, and just like hammering it home on all different levels. And I think people will become more empathetic and compassionate. And at the end of the day, it's great that the story has prompted conversations like this, so we can talk about the issues. And I think for me, the main thing that I always come back to is, it's like, well, we know this is bad, so why do we allow the world to be as it is when we can fix it and try and find a better way? Like, people shouldn't have to like worry about where the next meal's coming from. Got more than enough food, more than enough land, more than enough people to fix the problem.
Yeah.
So why are we allowing it to be like this? There's got to be a better way. And that's just the main question that I want to lead people towards, and get people thinking about that. Like, what kind of a world do you want to live in?
Some people have just given up.
They don't know. They don't know there's another option. And it's a hard thing to think about. Like, how would you change the world?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We don't have all the answers. I mean, obviously many of the leaders of this world, they don't have the answers either. They're just making it up as they go along. They don't, there's no like one fix for everybody. But, I think that, a start would be that more and more people are become aware that this could happen to them, and it doesn't matter how much money they had in their bank account or their connections with other people and things like that. You just don't know. You could be this, you could be working at a high-paying job, and then all of a sudden you're laid off. And you're trying to figure out how to feed your family. I mean, that happened to me 20 years ago. And, it's like, oh yeah, we're just moving your job to another country. And you don't have a job anymore. And, you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to feed my kids, or how am I going to pay my rent, or whatever. And it could happen, it can happen to anyone. I mean, I thought, oh, good. And I mean, now I'm in a place that, personally, I have been disabled, so I have that income. But I live with my, twin sons and one of my sons, his wife. We're all like roommates, and we wouldn't be able to afford our apartment or food if we didn't pool our resources, split the bills and split the rent and help each other when we need it with food and whatnot. So some people just don't think that it can happen to them, and it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, it's definitely getting worse. It's like, if you think about similar situations over here, people are having to stay at home for longer and they can't afford to. It's almost like robbing you of independence, and it limits your freedoms almost. So it's a very strange place. It's easy to feel disillusioned and that you can't give up. That you just want to give up, and you just end up burying your head into TikTok or into computer games and just going about your life. And that's what they want, really. They just want.
Yeah, it's just kind of like putting a hood over you and just like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, scary.
It is.
It's good to like both these kind of things.
Yeah, and Together We Rise is something that should stick with people, because we do better together, and we don't have to believe in all the same things, but every person has different commonalities. We need to eat. We need to be healthy. We need to take care of our families, or, however, there are those certain things that no matter who you are or where you live, there are certain things that you absolutely need, and that everybody in the world needs the same thing.
Yeah, universals. And I mean, I do think there's a way to change the world, and you only really have to look at something like Christianity and how that's spread across the world to see an example of how you can grow a sort of movement that is built on sort of universal beliefs, like things you just said.
Yeah.
Like we could all agree on that. It doesn't matter what part of the world that you're from, and that's the foundation from what you build. And you agree them universal norms, and you change the world together. Essentially, unite people behind it and grow it that way.
So, do you usually write novellas, or do you do a mix of novellas and novels, or What other
I
things?
like novels. Yeah, I like writing all kinds of stories. I'll write 2 sentence stories. I've written very short, like flash fiction pieces. I like writing short stories as well. I like the smaller projects because I have to work full time. Free time is very much a luxury, so I have to really like choose subjects wisely. And for a long time, I moved to novels.
Mm-hmm.
And the first novel, Pariah's Lament, that was published in 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic. So that was it's more of a classic epic fantasy with a few YA themes running through. That was a good fun story. Like if you like characters that grow and change and underdog characters and like big battle scenes, it sort of harkens to all of that. So not a bad one. And recently I got a bit tired of writing longer fiction and I've moved more to novellas. And I'm just about to start a bit of like an online web series, which is going to be more tailored to interactivity. So want to create opportunities for readers to like name characters or be named after characters.
That's really cool. You have
And,
to let me know when you get that
yeah,
up and running.
and it's
I'd
going to
be
be
glad
like,
to read any of your books.
yeah. Well, I think after this one, I've just wanted to like something a bit more humorous and something that people can escape into, a bit more of a classic fantasy. So it's essentially a world that's overrun with monsters, and there's a big industry in like taking bounties to hunt these monsters. So there are all different crews of monster hunters who go around. It's a bit like Kings of the Wild meets The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But
Oh,
the premise is that these guys, the crew that it follows, are hopeless and useless, and they were part of a really, really like well-known, famous crew, and they broke away to start their own. But there's a reason that they're not the heroes. So it's about them struggling along.
oh, I can't wait. I gotta get a list of all your books and make sure I read them all.
Yeah, well, that one's I'm gonna do that on Patreon, and it's gonna be like a weekly thing. And
Cool.
then yeah, so it's gonna be a bit interesting.
Yeah, keep me updated on everything.
Yeah, certainly
I
shall.
want to thank you for being on this, being on my show and joining me. I think this is, this was just an amazing discussion, and I thank you again.
No, thank
If
you very much.
if you wish for you or your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast. Thank you for listening. Be safe, be well, and always be kind.
Thank you for listening to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews. If you are looking to be on the podcast or looking for a book review, you can go to amysbookshelfreviews.com and look for the appropriate navigational menu. Again, thank you all for listening and being a supporter of this podcast and of the Amy's Bookshelf Reviews, professional reviewers of books and audiobooks. Thank you all. Be safe and be well.